Morning folks, how you doing? Sorry, I'm a bit out of breath. It's been a busy morning. My my little dog is sick, so I've been in the vet all morning trying to get him sorted. The chief financial officer and accountant. Somebody asked me to talk a bit about fishing needles, needle fishing. So that's what we're going to just do a very quick segment on this morning. So I fish one brand of needles made by my good friend Charles Nelson at Cwolf Lures, and that's them there, right? So this is the latest iteration of the long nose, and that is a 20 gram, right? Now, just to show you kind of how far things have come. So this is one of the first ones I ever got off from back when we used to fish trebles on them, right? So I met Charles by accident one day out fishing on the Wexford coast or whatever, and he was coming off a mark, and I asked him, any fish? He said no, and I said, oh, look, I'm fishing tomorrow if you'd like to fish. And we fished together. We had a lot of fun. We got on a few fish, and we've been firm friends ever since. But as he was leaving, he put a handful of these things into my hand, and he said, here, try those. I make them, And I looked at these things, and I thought, oh, yeah, okay, whatever. And I kind of stuck them in the bottom of the bag, and didn't really think about them very much. But I happened to be on a beach one night, low tide, first hour of the coming tide, and reached into my bag looking for, something like that, like an Evo Bass Lance or whatever, the kind of typical. It was a calm enough night. There was maybe 1 foot breakers, just calm, no wind. There was lots of sand eel in the water. I was like, right, there's got to be a few fish around. And I happened across one of the needles in my bag, and I said, hey, I'll give it a shot, right? And it was something like that, right? So that's the white chartreuse again in 20, right? And first chuck in, I had a fish. And from that day on, I've been hooked. I mean, they're absolutely fantastic. They're so much fun to fish. There's so many ways you can fish them. And they cast extremely well if you catch them right? So leave plenty of line as you cast, right? So typically you'll be fishing an 8.5 or a 9 foot rod if you're on the beach. Leave them on a long line, and you'll figure it out as you go, but you just got to catch them right, and when you get them right, they go like a missile, right? So mostly I'm fishing 16, 18 or 20, but if I'm on somewhere like a huge big beach like Tramore, when the surf is running hard, I'll be up as high as 32. Unfortunately, last year, Numbnuts here lost his box of needles, right? Which is just total heartbreak. So the important stuff, how do you fish them? Well, they literally are cast and retrieve, right? Just out you go, let them sink, right? Now, depending on the ground, most of the time, no, not all of the time, but most of the time I'm fishing them on the open beach, so I don't have to worry about snagging up or whatever. So I'll let them hit the bottom, and then I'll start my retrieve or whatever. A little trick is I'll drop the rod tip during the retrieve to get the needle to sink down. Sometimes that'll induce a strike if a bass is following. Sometimes I literally drag them along the bottom, so really slow retrieve. Myself and Charles were on a beach one night fishing them, and when you fish them on the top, we weren't getting a touch. When we were scraping along the bottom, bang, we were getting hit all the time. So it's just a case of experimenting until you find out what way the fish want them on the night, right? But if you've ever been on like an open beach at night that has a lot of sand eel on it, right? And you bang your foot to see if the eel are there or whatever, and they scatter, right? You'll notice that as they go, they leave like a little V shape in their wake, right? There's a little V shape in the water, right? That's exactly what those lures produce, right? Like the less action, the better, right? It's like, you know, sometimes, paddle tails or all that, that's all great. But other times, there's lots of ways to approach fishing, right? Like throw the rule book out the window. As I said before, make your own rule book, like experiment, try new things. You never know what'll work. I will warn you this though. Charles is backed up to the hilt, so if you're putting an order in, you're going to be waiting, right? Because I was literally just got off the phone to him, and he's like flat out making lures. So we're both going to be at the show on Sunday or whatever. Other ways we fished them, right? So estuary fishing with them. So what I do with them is I cast them up the tide so that they have a chance to sink, and then I literally just let them run down. Like it's like fishing a wet fly. So you got a U in the line, and when you see that line tighten, bang, straight hit it, and you'll have a fish on. So you can trot them along the bottom of an estuary. I've had lots of fish fishing over reefs and rough ground, both in the day and the night. I was at the front of an estuary one day. Now, they were only small fish, but I could see a shoal of bass just mooching around a weed bed. And I flicked a little, that guy there, little 12 grammer. Now I'll put a lone sniper BKK on the back of that, right? I flicked that in amongst them, and I got strike after strike after strike, right? A lot of the fish tend to come on the assist, right? So they are hitting the middle, they're hitting the lure that way or whatever. Mostly the bites are fairly ferocious. They really attack the thing, they really go for it. Sometimes can be subtle, but mostly it's pretty ferocious. Most of the fish I get take it quite far out, right? The way oftentimes you'll get a lot of follows and the fish will take close to the shore. Not so with these, right? My absolute favorite way of fishing them is actually in the daytime when the surf is running and the surf is up. If you have a 30-gram needle and a rod to handle it, fishing them in the top foot of water and seeing the bass come up and hit it, it's just absolutely fantastic. It's just a beautiful way to fish. So there's not really loads else to tell you. Like, I mean, the thing to do is to get your hands on some, and it's to get out there and try it. Now, look, if you're going to fish them over snaggy ground, you can't be rattling them off the bottom because you're going to lose them, right? But if you're fishing them on the open beach, you can rattle them along the bottom. You can mix up your retrieve, like the Danish sea trout fishermen put a lot by lure stop, right? And that's when they get their sea trout to strike. And bass actually respond to the same thing. Like if you stop the lure and just let it sink a bit, bang, oftentimes they'll hit it, right? So mix up your retrieve speeds, see which way is working on any given night. No two nights are the same, really. Well, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like it's like totally different, but like, what I'm trying to say to you is just try different things with them. The other thing is fluorocarbon, right? So last year we got out and we were fishing the beach together again, both fishing the exact same needle. And I was getting fish after fish, and they were all good fish. They were all over 60, really nice fish. and Charles hadn't had a tap, right? And I asked him, like, what leader have you got up? And he said, oh, I'm fishing 20 pound, whatever. And it was a full moon night, very bright. It was middle of summer. I said, drop the leader, because I was fishing Retrival's big trout, 14 pound. And the minute he dropped the leader, he was into a fish. So it just goes to show you, guys say fluorocarbon doesn't matter, you don't need it, but that's not my experience. Like, if you don't want to use it, fine, not my business. But in my experience, I fish as light as I possibly can get away with, right? Because they can't see it, and, and if they can see it, they ain't going to hit it. Bass aren't stupid fish. So that's it. Like, there's nowhere I wouldn't fish them, if that makes sense. My preferred, my go-to is nighttime, open beach. I just love it, right? Remember that on an open beach, the bass are not evenly spread out, right? They might maraud up and down the beach a little bit, but there are going to be spots that way outfish other spots. I've said this lots of times, like, go on your spring low and look for the structure, right? Look for sandbars, right? Like, there's a beach here, and it's so deceptive. Like, you go out onto the sandbar, and if you're fishing it on the coming tide, you think I'm fine. And next thing, you're trying to get home and you realize, Jesus, I'm up to the top of my boots. And it happens really quickly. So be careful. Like be smart. Don't, it's not worth getting yourself in trouble over, right? Um, you know, like, a lot of these baits fish on the same principle. Those I've shown you many times now at this point. That's the Raid Fantastic. I'll be fishing those in the very same style, right? That's what I bought them for. I think the soft plastics sometimes can work a little bit better during the day, but that depends. Like, in the current, if you've got plenty of current, these are fantastic, right? Now you got to throw them up the current to get them to sink a little bit, and then they'll just run around. And you literally don't do anything. Like, I'm just casting up the current, tightening so that I have a nice U in the line, and tracking the lure as it sweeps around, right? And you'll just feel the tug, and boom, right? Because, like, in the mouth of an estuary, you'll often find a spot where the bass hole up, right? There'll be a big dip or whatever, and they sit in under that because they don't have to work as hard because not as much current there, and they just sit and watch for what's getting washed out of the estuary, and up they come to grab it, right? So you can fish your surface lures, you can fish paddle tails, you fish hard lures, but you can also fish these bad boys. So I wouldn't be afraid of them. I would just get a couple in and try them. Now, my favorite colors are solid white, and I had a pink and red that I just loved it. It was just killing fish. I don't mean I wasn't killing the fish. I mean, it was like nailing fish for me. Like, I was getting a lot of fish on it. So, but really, I caught a lot of fish on that lure because I fished it a lot. I probably would have caught as many on that, right? I mean, white and chartreuse is just classic combination for bass, right? These are lovely. I mean, he just does such a good. I mean, look at the workmanship in that lure, like, and the little. I just love the long nose. Now, I don't fish them as much as Charles does, but the stubbies are also super duper. I don't have any here to hand because, as I explained to you, I lost my box of needles. But he does a kind of a little stubby needle that's more like a bait fish or whatever, and they're lethal, and they cast a bomb. I mean, they absolutely just fly out. I mean, you can imagine it's 25 grams of resin with just 2 single hooks on it, and it's most of the weight is in the back, right? So it's like throwing a lead, right? It's just gone. Unlike these guys, when you can often struggle, you know, if you're open beach fishing, you usually, the open beach is going to usually fish best when you've got, you know, a wind that's blowing onto the beach, so you're fishing into the wind. Um, yeah, so that's it. I hope that that was helpful. My advice is to just try them, fish them. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised how many takes you get, you know. He does a flat nose one as well, and I've had some fantastic fishing with that. It's a bit like a pachinko, right? It chinks side to side or whatever. Um, we were fishing in South Wexford, and it was particularly kind of chunky day, you know, lots of white water and everything. And we climb out onto a spot that's right in the middle of the beach, and we were fishing, but there's a gutter right in front of you. And I was retrieving the lure, no interest, no interest, and then literally right at my feet, fish just came up, boom, and boom. Great fun, like really, you know, just it's that take, isn't it? It's all about the take, right? It's like bang, you know, and your knees hit together and on you go. So look, I hope that was helpful. I'll be posting more, and have the GoPro this year, so we'll get some footage of us fishing in the surf and bass into the needles and stuff. That should be fun. So other than that, I've got loads to do today. I've got to get ready to travel to England and stuff. And unfortunately, as I said, my poor little dog is sick, so I'm a bit worried about him because he's only got 3 legs and it's his one back leg is sick. So uh, you can imagine, you know, we get attached to our animals, don't we? I certainly am very attached to mine. So um, look, other than that, everybody be well, keep her lit, tight lines, and we'll talk soon. All right, cheers everyone, bye bye.